How did yesterday pan out as far as you were concerned?
So it was pretty much what I had expected. Donald Trump was sort of subdued and quiet in court. He sort of had to be. And then he went back to Florida and gave a very boisterous, rousing, angry speech to rally his base, as he's so good at doing.
Which is proving very popular, it has to be said.
It is. I mean, he's raised, I think, $5 or $6 million in the last 2 weeks. He's jumped ahead in the Republican polling. He is definitely getting a short-term advantage, a short-term bump in popularity out of this, these legal challenges that he's having. I don't think it lasts. I think this hurts him in the long run.
Why?
Well, because I think for Donald Trump to win the presidency, for any Republican to win the presidency, for anybody, you have to win the suburban independent voters in a couple of key states. And this is not Donald Trump's core base that loves everything he does. These are people who are a little bit more discerning, and they're increasingly put off by Donald Trump's antics. And I think, so his base is fired up by this. We saw it last night in Mar-a-Lago, huge enthusiasm for him. But the independent, sort of better educated, if I can say, voters who care about the issues are put off by his constant chaos and legal challenges.
A lot of people are scratching their heads this morning and wondering why the legal team have gone for this one. It's salacious, certainly, but it's nothing compared to some of the other charges he might face.
Well, so, I mean, there are three, basically, investigations happening in parallel. So, and they actually don't really have anything to do with each other. So there's this one that was unveiled last night or yesterday. There's the case in the state of Georgia where he's being investigated for trying to influence the election results there. And then there's the case of the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, and did he mishandle or purposely mishandle, which it increasingly looks like he did, the storage of classified U.S. government documents.
And the January 6th
and instigating January 6th. So these are all running in parallel. This case yesterday, the financial sort of business bookkeeping fraud, may end up being the least appealing or the least sort of compelling of the cases. But I think the district attorney felt he had enough to warrant a case, and he didn't want to wait for the other ones to play out. So he got the ball rolling on this one.
You understand US politics better than most. How difficult will it be for him to have a court case, which could be January, February next year, while also running to be president?
Well, very difficult, I think. But in some ways it helps him because, again, it keeps him in the news. Donald Trump was elected 7 or 8 years ago, whenever that was, because he was constantly in the news and the media covered every single thing he did. And this will happen again if his case comes to a trial in January, February, March next year.
So what do you expect to happen between now and his next court appearance on the 4th of December?
Well, there'll be a lot of back and forth between the lawyers, appeals, motions to proceed in different ways.
What about him? What will he do?
He will, as you just saw, he's selling merchandise now already. He will milk this for everything he can. He will use this to rally his base, to raise money. He's already doing that very effectively. But as I said, I think there's a risk to him that many in America sort of tire of it. And as the course of the summer and then into the fall and into next Christmas, people are not going to want to hear about this anymore. And the other cases will be piling on top of this. So I think the legal... I don't think we should underestimate how challenging all these legal cases will be for Donald Trump.
How much of a point does he have when he talks about this being politically motivated? He makes the point that Biden had documents at his home out of Washington. He also makes the point that the district attorney's wife worked for the Democrats.
Yeah, I think, I disagree. I don't think it is politically motivated. I think the district attorney in New York, whoever it is over the years, has always had a track record of going after these kinds of financial crimes. The district attorney said yesterday, Manhattan is the financial center of the world, and we have to make sure that people who operate here do it in a legal and proper way, and that's what he's doing. Whether his wife was a supporter of a Democrat should be sort of irrelevant. Yes, Joe Biden did have documents that were taken from the White House, apparently, and put in his think tank and in his home. But again, he and his team cooperated fully with the investigators when they discovered the documents. They turned them in themselves, as opposed to Donald Trump, who it seems has been hiding documents. There's evidence that came out over the weekend that he actually went through boxes and removed documents and then moved them elsewhere in Mar-a-Lago. So very different scenario.
You know Trump. You haven't worked for him, but you know him. How has he changed as a person, do you think, over the years from when he was president to the period afterwards?
Well, I think the problem for Donald Trump is he hasn't really changed that much. And I think there are a lot of people in the Republican Party who would love to see him run a issues-focused, serious campaign for presidency. He could probably win again if he concentrated on a couple of issues that resonate with voters and stuck to the script. But he seems to be incapable of doing that. So he gets up last night in Mar-a-Lago, and he talks for an hour and a half in his rallies about all the things that have been done to him, how terribly everyone treats him. And I think that is why, if he does end up as the Republican nominee, he won't win. Joe Biden will beat him because people get tired of hearing Donald Trump complaining about how difficult his life is. So if he could change and become a serious issues-focused politician, he would have, I think, a very good chance of winning the presidency again. But he seems incapable of change.
Do you think he knows when he stands there and delivers his speeches and says basically there'd be no war if he was the president, no famine, whatever else he says?
Yeah.
Do you think he knows that he's stretching the truth? Do you think he believes what he's saying?
It's hard to say at this point. I mean, he may very well believe what he's saying at this point. I mean, I think in the beginning he probably knew it wasn't true, but his base believes it. I mean, you know, your last contributor, you know, the former Republican official, you know, what she was saying, you know, America is a disaster, the economy is bad, Joe Biden's policies are ruining America. Those are all Donald Trump talking points, and he and his base, I think, believe it.
And a final thought, if you would please, though we're almost out of time. He keeps banging on about what's happened in court and having a pop at the judge and goodness knows what else. He's going to get himself in a lot of trouble if he keeps doing that.
Well, he is. The judge was very clear yesterday, asking both parties to not talk publicly about this case. He didn't issue a gag order, so Donald Trump isn't legally obliged to not talk about it. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if a gag order comes because he's so incendiary. And his team is sort of threatening to the DA and his family. I wouldn't be surprised if the judge says, that's it, no more talking publicly about this case.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks for the insight. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Lewis.